more specifically reading on Pirates in Paradise, you're like, okay, what is this all about? You know, we've seen movies on pirates, we've seen the Pirates of the Caribbean series, obviously. Is there anyone here who hasn't seen that series? Except Kranthi. So everyone's seen it. So, you know, we've had these images in our minds of pirates and about what they represent. And so, when we read all of the things that go with piracy, you know, not just in, say, the 1600s and the 1700s, but even today as, you know, in the 21st century, we felt that it's important that we not only bring out in front of you the true nature of the 21st century the piracy ecosystem, but also the support system that's been given to it in the form of unwritten letters of marketing. Now, I was speaking about, you know, Jack Sparrow, for example. We look at pirates, you know, we fed this diet of pirates are these free-spirited, fun-loving, adventurous explorers in search of lost treasures, gold, silvers, Mayan treasures which have been hidden from all of us, and these guys are out searching for these they're glory seekers essentially, with, you know, the tiny bad habit of looting and killing people on high seas. But that's the diet on which we've been thrown. Perhaps the most important thing about, you know, what we've been told about pirates is that they like to be independent. They don't like to be bound by the systems of civilization, and, you know, they don't like to be under the purview of governments, and they're to the very large extent anti-government, anti-systems, as we saw in terms of the British going after you know, Jack Sparrow and his friends. But this is a very interesting point, because just as old as, you know, we have the concept of piracy, there's also an equally old concept of letters of marque. Essentially, these are documents given to sailors, Greek pirates, giving him amnesty from piracy laws as long as the ships plundered by him on the high seas belong to an enemy nation. So, for example, a pirate of British origin would be given a letter by the King of Britain saying that you can go out and plunder ships of France or Germany, and if you do that, you're not a pirate, you're just a normal sailor, and we're going to treat you as such. This is essentially a symbol of legitimacy given by this, you know, legitimate system in terms of the government or the King of Britain to an illegal system or illegal activities followed by these people who don't consider themselves to be part of the system. You know, this is really interesting because this is sort of a contradiction to what we perceive as pirates. Pirates are independent of the system, and yet there is this thing here which says we legitimize what you're doing. So what is it essentially that we're talking about when we talk about the piracy ecosystem and the letters of marque? Kranthi, would you like to add something?
Our goal is here to show that who are behind this piracy. Government officials and some of the businessmen are involved in this. And we will show what are the various ways they are supporting this piracy. Another thing we are going to show is how the piracy has been spread from the past to the modern times, and about the letter of marque. So, according to the case mentioned, there are two types of piracy. One is the opportunistic. In this, suppose if you see pirates, they suddenly attack a ship and plunder all the wealth available. This comes from the opportunity piracy. This is just an extra income for them. This is not the regular income which they get. The regular income they get is from the organized piracy. The organized piracy contains various types. I mean, like the insurance fraud. Insurance fraud is something they hide the ship and claim insurance, which are very specialist in hiding the ships. So in this way they do the insurance fraud. And coming to the documentary fraud, it's like they send a consumer invoice to the buyer saying that they are going to deliver so and so cargo and so date, and but they don't actually sell the cargo. By the time the sellers realize, buyers realize that the sellers have cheated them, they will disappear. And the other is cargo diversion, in which they take the hijack the ship to some other place and sell the whole cargo and make the money. And the other thing is human smuggling. This is in somewhere in 1990s, it's almost like $2 billion in business. It's like some illegal immigrants from China has been transported to US. Some lakhs of immigrants has been transported, and they get the income for the number of passengers they transport from China to US illegally. So this is all organized. And coming to the dialectal analysis, as part of this system is concerned, the owners here are the the business people and the government officials. Mostly particularly this case study in the Southeast Asia, it's Chinese government and Indonesian government. And the means of production here are the pirates who actually do the business and ships, the insurance documents and everything. The workers here are the pirates who actually become the pirates. I mean the exploited people of some of the undeveloped nations, and the sailors, criminals outside the boat. So it's surplus value. If you see, the pirates actually get made rid of what they actually plunder from the ships. But if you see the government officials, it's their political interest which actually drive them to do the business. For example, China actually wanted to dominate the entire Southeast region. So it's a political interest. Some of the times you can't even calculate in terms of monetary value. And the businessmen also do get a lot of gain by attacking some of the ships of their competitors so that they could increase their business value. And what the pirates do get is very less. So you can see a lot of difference in what the owners get and what the pirates get. And many people have been exploited in this process. In certain cases, for example, if you see the Somalia case, there the people livelihood has been spoiled by some of the foreign companies, and these people are ultimately led to become pirates. And because of this piracy, many sailors have lost their lives, and there is a huge impact for some of the people who are dependent on the pirates. So here is the piracy has reached to such an extent that it has now become commoditized. I mean, the piracy has been outsourced to some of the teams to perform so and so tasks in so and so day. So this shows that how the work is actually eliminated from the pirates. So this shows how government was involved behind this piracy. This one particular case in which this Anasira is a ship of Cyprus registered. The Chinese Defense Department actually held this ship for being hijacked, but it never returned the ship to the actual ship owner, and the crew never been interviewed for what actually happened. And the people who are involved in hijacking were later been released without any imprisonment being given to them. And there are some other cases also which the government supported this piracy. In some of the regions in the Southeast Asia, the China government asked to pay a fine of $150 for passing through the canal. If some ships doesn't pay that price, then they are being booked for some of the cases of doing some fraud, supplying, smuggling. And Hong Kong government has released another report saying in 93-94, just in 1 year, Chinese government was involved in some 42 scams of piracy. This shows how huge the government was involved in the piracy. And other cases which the businessmen are involved are in the Southeast region. There are 4 syndicates. 3 belong to the Chinese teams and 1 belong to the Indian Ocean. These 3 teams are usually supported by the businessmen belong to the Hong Kong, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. And the other case was, there is another case in the Indonesia's richest man was actually made a contract with pirates to hijack a particular ship and even attack some of the ships also. This shows how businessmen were involved behind the piracy. So let's see how piracy has evolved as the days progress. It has now reached the stage of contractual piracy. Here the piracy is commodity and outsourced to particular teams. See how the piracy actually happens is there are 3 teams involved in it. First team receives the order and the other team performs that particular hijacking or attacking the ship, and the third team delivers the order or whom they actually get the order with. But each and every team doesn't know what the other team is doing, who the other team is. So if one gets caught also, the other team's names are not revealed. So if the government was involved in any particular team also, those are not revealed. So these are some of the other research which we have done. Nowadays pirates are even kidnapping the tourists for ransom. And because of this, some of the island countries whose economy is completely dependent on the tourism sector is being impacted also. So if you see the Somalia case, there are many foreign industries that are actually dump their waste over the Somalia water areas and are illegally overfished, making the spoil the livelihood of the localites there. So they doesn't have any other livelihood apart from becoming the pirates. And now the US is attacking those pirates, saying that they are attacking their ships. So to destroy capitalism, you have to support piracy. If you see from this slide. And there is another. If you see the Somalia case, US media generally showcases Somalia only for piracy purpose. Among the 94 cases, 84 times they have showcased Somalia as only piracy related. And another 6% of whether US citizens want to fight against Somalia, suicide bombing. But none of it represents what Somalia crisis. There is a crisis in Somalia, but no one actually speaks about it in the US media. Somalia is facing with the deadly conflicts of food security, but no one speaks about it. They are speaking about only piracy because US wants it for its safety that vessel shipping is not affected because of the pirates. And if you see the piracy news made by the US media, among the 70% of the time they spoke only about US this particular ship. They spoke only about this ship because it belongs to the US. I mean, the sailors were US and the crew were US. Among there were some 215 attacks made in the 2009. Among those 215 attacks, lots of hijacking has been successfully done. Among those 47, 10 belong to the US or the Western countries, US or the European countries. Among those 10, only the reported 9 belong to the European and US, and only 1 belong to the Saudi. They showed Saudi because the scale was very huge there. So many people doesn't know what's actually happening because media is projecting only what US wants to be projected.
Right. We've looked at a lot of data, a lot of numbers, a lot of cases over the last 7-8 minutes, and you must be a little confused as to what we're trying to pick up. So we started off with something very simple. There are two types of piracy out there. There's opportunistic piracy. There are these bunch of pirates having a smoke sitting out there on the beach and they see this barge go by and they're like, okay, there's an opportunity here to take over this thing, get a little cash on the side. That's the sort of thing that used to happen very often earlier. That's essentially what piracy in the 1600s or 1700s was for the most part. In modern days though, we've come up, another system has come up which is organized piracy, in which there's a tremendous amount of planning that goes into it. There's a tremendous network of people with political as well as economic backing in countries. You mentioned Indonesia and China, but in other places as well, which takes over. There's a process which spans in certain occasions even years in an effort to capture certain entities, certain ships or certain goods that these ships are carrying, and in whatever way dispose of them and gain value from it. What we've realized from our research is that increasingly this opportunistic piracy is being brought under the purview of organized piracy. Increasingly, these small players in regional markets are being brought in, and the work for the organized pirates is getting outsourced to them. So what they're doing is they're creating greater levels between the top hierarchy, the people right at the top who are actually controlling this entire ecosystem, and the people who are actually carrying out the activities at the ground level, and therefore they're creating more levels of buffer between these people of political and economic influence who control the system and the people who are actually doing all the dirty work on the seas. Another very important thing that we noticed is that piracy, to a certain extent, is being used by certain countries, most notably China, to exert its influence over expansive maritime areas, especially the South China Sea. There's a tremendous amount of literature on how China, through a number of both legal and illegal ways, has been trying to take over the South China Sea. One of the ways is through increasing levels of piracy, sometimes with directly using their own ships in these processes. So, what is it that we're trying to drive across? The point that we're trying to drive across is that what we're seeing is a tremendous amount of support and nourishment of an illegal system, piracy, an illegal system by legitimate entities, people in governments, people with a tremendous amount of economic clout, big businesses in Indonesia and China, Now these could be either political or corporate, and the purpose is for personal, illicit, economic as well as political in terms of power, in terms of control, these sort of gains. Keep that in mind when you're looking at the second part. Now, okay, there's some problem with the text, but essentially when you come to modern times, now when we talk about pirates, what is it that we most often associate them with going after? They go after gold, they go after treasure, they go after diamonds and all of those things. In modern times, the equivalent treasure is intangible. It's ideas, it's patents, it's strategy that governments or corporates have. And the whole point of piracy in today's world is to try and get hold of this information, the currency of our times. Now, our focus therefore is going to be on the dichotomy of political and corporate agencies. We're not looking at a specific functional domain of these management entities. We're not looking at governments and corporates and what they do in certain specific ways. What we're saying is, what do these entities do outside the frame of the network, outside the frame of what is legal, to try and benefit in the legal system in terms of getting what is perhaps the most important thing in today's world, which is information. So, what is the dichotomy in knowledge acquisition? In terms of the form and content, it's very clear. We have governments on the one hand. These are meant essentially to uphold the laws of the land, as Shubham mentioned. The whole point in a capitalist system for governments to exist is to ensure the rule of the land, to ensure that contracts are out. And similarly, corporates, to a huge extent, at least as of today, preach about the importance of ethics and codes of conduct, which of course has spawned a huge number of courses as well. Many of us have taken them up. But what's very, very interesting is that knowledge acquisition is very often through illegal means. And we're going to look at this in a little while. Very often, the bulk of the most critical information that these agencies use, be it the Chinese defense systems, the CIA, the RAW in India, is through hacking and espionage, even corporates, for example. Now, essentially what's happening here is these entities, which are supposed to be these epitomes of good-naturedness or following the law and such, are actually giving support to illegal systems of piracy of information. And under the cloud that they have as legal entities, they're giving support to this parallel system which is essentially running the show. Now there's some very, very interesting historic examples of this as well. Starting of course with Pujari and the French Jesuit missionary. Now this guy went into China under the pretext of being a missionary, and he came up with some of the most secret techniques for manufacturing of ceramic. Now porcelain was a huge thing. We still call it China. So the Europeans were really fascinated with how to come up with this porcelain, how to manufacture this porcelain, but they didn't have the secrets to it. This guy went in, he got a lot of information out from China, sent it over to someone who he called his patron, his business associate essentially, and they set up their own porcelain manufacturing entity in France, resulting in a huge drop and in the economy of China, because a tremendous amount of porcelain transfer that used to happen through the Silk Route stopped subsequently. Another very interesting example of this sort of piracy in terms of intellectual property is in terms of tea. Now the British were mad over tea, but the Chinese had complete control over, the tea market. So what they did was they sent in this botanist, the Scottish botanist known as Robert Fortune, and he went into China, stole certain tea leaves, looked at all the methods that they used. He brought it into India for the East India Company, and within his own lifetime, India surpassed China in terms of the quantity of tea produced. So essentially what they did, they stole these ideas from China under the disguise of these pirates in a way, these spies, and they essentially ruined their economy and propped up another one. Now, these are just some historic examples. The thing that we want to be concentrating on hackers. What we're going to look at is these Chinese hacking pirates. Now, over the last 10 to 15 years, there have been three very, very big cases of hacking on an international level on a tremendously large scale. There's Operation Shady Rat, there's the Drilling for Secrets, the Dragon something, I'll look at that a little later, and the whole thing about going after Google. These are perhaps the three most interesting hacking cases, and we'll see over time how all three of them come back to the same entities and come back to the same country. Now, in terms of operations, shady net, that's one of the largest cyber attacks ever. Over 70 corporations across the world, these are companies, governments, non-profit organizations were attacked, and spies from 2006 to 08. Some believe that it actually started in 2002. We have evidence from 2006 to 08. And the attacks, interestingly, were traced to a place in Shanghai in China. China denies it, of course. Now, these victims included a huge range of people. Now, there were some 22 odd international corporations, there were 6 major industry players, there were 13 satellite television communication entities, 13 arms suppliers. So, they're looking at various types of sources, various types of data that they're collecting. Interestingly, each of these is a key thrust area in China's policy in terms of the areas of growth that they're looking at over the next 10 to 15 years. But these are, of course, hackers. They've got nothing to do with China. Now, another very interesting thing was the night driving case. What turned out was that 6 US and European energy companies were attacked by hackers. They essentially targeted these computerized systems, mapping systems, which find out where oil is across the world. And by using this data, China went into certain areas which other people hadn't even dreamt of going into before the Americans or the European oil agencies could enter those areas and claim these areas, which meant millions of dollars of money spent in research by these agencies was actually circumvented. That expenses were circumvented by the Chinese without actually having done anything, and they got control of the system. Again, with the case of Google, it was found that there was a tremendous breach in Google's security system. There was an attempt to find out to hack the email IDs of these Chinese human rights activists. Interesting. Why would a hacker who is normally perceived to be anti-government outside the system go after people who are actually fighting against the government? Interesting thing to look at now, but that was something that was happening. Google also said there were a number of other companies were attacked, and this was a huge espionage program. And what happened was subsequently a lot of investigation was carried out in the United States and Europe, and what they found was that all of these activities, all of these hacking were carried out by this one small, as in it all came down to this one small building in Shanghai, which is also known as Unit 61398. The Comments group of the People's Liberation Army of China. Now, this is essentially a military unit cover designator of this persistent threat unit, which continuously tries to hack and get information out of systems. And it's based out of this Digitrid building. It's a 12-story building. And very interestingly, though China claims that they have no idea about this building, when CNN tried to go and investigate this building, what is actually inside of there, Chinese armed forces actually followed them, and the CNN reporters got arrested for breaching some territorial blah, blah, blah. So we're seeing the dichotomy. Now, what's really interesting, the parameters that have come out is that these people, remember there are pilots out there, we know what pilots are, they're adventurous, they're fun-loving, they're very tactful, witty, Jack Sparrow for you. And what we're looking at these hackers is that they're extremely capable. They managed to infiltrate some of the biggest industries, some of the most secure networks. They're large, and more than 1,000 servers being used by this single unit alone. There are actually 20 odd units of this kind across China. They're employing around 2,000 people, and they're very focused. They've been targeting specific companies in the United States. More specifically, they've been only targeting companies that are directly going up against companies in China in the same field. Very interesting there again. Very well supported in terms of they've got some of the best machinery available to them. They're tricky because, well, they're essentially a shady organization, there's nothing to do about it. And they're also the tip of the iceberg. Jack Sparrow is just a representative. There's a huge number of pirates out there doing the very same thing, plundering. And this is just the tip of the iceberg because there are at least 20 others which are known to exist. Now, why are we covering all of this? What is the whole point of it? Remember how there was this extraneous support to the piracy network, not only in the 21st century, but even back then in terms of letters of marque. The Chinese say that they have no idea that such an entity exists. Yet their controllers take, as in all the hacking takes place during business hours in Beijing's time zone, suggesting that this group is professionally hired and not just private hackers inspired by patriotic passions. Another thing that we found is that the Chinese troops, as I mentioned in terms of CNN, were posted at the entrance of the alleged headquarters of Unit 61398. The targets are in sync with those that the Chinese government has been at odds with. They've looked at companies which, are competing with their main business, and they've gone after that. They've looked at entities that have been targeting China and the government system over there, and they've gone after those. They've gone after Google, which made a huge hue and cry in China before it left. And some of the data stolen has been actually linked to pirated goods that have been being sold by Chinese companies. Clearly, there is a tacit understanding between this illegal system that's there, the hackers and all this information that they've been able to extract, and China, but there's a deniability that they've been able to maintain so far. No one's been able to link them together. So what we are trying to say essentially is our covert piracy hypothesis is that a number of illegal parallel systems have been developed by governments and corporates across the world to acquire confidential information, because at the end of the day, in today's day and age, information is the bread and butter of any business. Now, piracy of information and intellectual property, which are the modern trade relations, as I said, is an integral part of the operations of governments and businesses. This could also include, say, the CIA or the RAW in India or the Chinese equivalents and such. And these entities, which are meant to uphold the rule of law and the ethics of business, are actually indulging in this illegal activity on the side, outside the frame of their own systems or of their own legal systems, to gain what is perhaps the most important asset in terms of